So after the Mercy changes and the Junkrat changes and Moira changes and a lot of other changes, I'm going to talk to you guys today about why I feel like Overwatch and its balancing is really just quite frustrating to get used to, and why I wish it would kind of change in the future. Now honestly, I have been getting a lot back into Overwatch. I'm okay with the meta right now. Not personally my favorite one, but not way too bad of a one. And you know, I think it's fine. I think the game is not dying or anything. But one thing that I feel like they really could improve on quite a bit is the way that they're balancing the game in multiple ways, and I'll just try to talk about those today. Now, this is kind of going to go all over the place, so sorry if it doesn't feel way too structured, but please leave your own comments in the comment section down below what you feel like they could do to help fix the way balance feels in this game, as I feel like a lot of players do feel not the best about it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the way that they use time in balancing in this game, and it's something that I don't feel like way too many people actually think about. A lot of people think about the actual changes themselves, and I will talk about those later, but the way that they utilize time and the time intervals between them releasing characters and between them mainly releasing buffs and nerfs, I feel like is very ineffective. What I personally like the most, and maybe they shouldn't do this, but maybe they should, is put out essentially a time schedule where, let's say like League of Legends, every 2 weeks there's a decent amount of changes. It doesn't have to be way too much, doesn't have to be way too little, just a decent amount of changes, buffs, nerfs, stuff to help the meta, and maybe even reinforce the meta if they like it right now, or maybe tear down the meta. Just so we have a schedule so we can get ready for the new changes coming up. I feel like that's something that the game could honestly need, because oftentimes in the way that it's kind of balanced right now as far as a time schedule, you don't know if your character is going to be good or bad in the future, and I feel like that causes a lot of stress for many players. I think the really good example right now is of course Mercy, where a lot of people were like, hey, maybe I won't pick up this character, you know, she's really overpowered right now, so obviously she's gonna get nerfed. She did get a few nerfs, but then she was still meta for like 100 days plus. And they didn't really release any changes for the entirety of Season 7 to help fix with Mercy, and it didn't really make sense. And I feel like if they had a schedule that, you know, they followed, they were listening to their fans telling, hey, maybe we should nerf this down a little bit, that could have helped quite a bit. And oftentimes, with the way that they use time, I feel like either Blizzard takes way too long in doing their buffs and nerfs, or way too short. And I'm going to give you an exact example of this, and that is going to be Doomfist, because he has, at one point, nerfed too fast and buff too slow, both at the same time, which I don't think should be possible, but I mean, it kind of did happen. So with Doomfist, of course, he was released on the PTR, people were trying him out, people were complaining about the one-shot because, you know, Roadhog lost his, so why does Doomfist has his? You know, all that, just controversy. But then, you know, Doomfist was essentially nerfed immediately. He comes out to live, he doesn't do that well, and ever since he's been released with those nerfs, he's had like a 45-43% win rate. Honestly, a pretty terrible character in the game as far as just being able to be viable for a lot of different players. Of course, there are some top 500s, but only really one, and even in that case, it's kind of hard to say. So we kind of have that. But then on the other side of the spectrum, we also have the fact that Doomfist hasn't been buffed for a very long time, and it took them forever to buff him up a little bit, and took them like 3 or 4 months to fix some of his bugs that we found out in the first few days. I don't really understand why they take so long at one point. You know, they're taking forever to buff Doomfist, and they wait so many patches to get the buffs through. Well, at the same time, sometimes they're just like, hey, let's just put them all out right now, and let's just change everything right now. I feel like buffing and nerfing in that way really creates a situation that is just kind of a situation of unsettledness, or being unsettled in your community. You never know if the character that's really bad is gonna get buffs right now or in a few months, and at the same time you never know if the good character that you're trying to pick up is going to get nerfed right now or in a few months. And I feel like if we had a better schedule, you could kind of just get used to the game more, kind of get used to what you're going to expect. But as it is right now, I think this is the maximum way to piss off the maximum amount of people, because they can't really ready themselves for anything, and everything just kind of feels like, especially if it's a nerf, like it's a punch in the gut out of nowhere, like it's a sucker punch, especially let's say for the Mercy changes that came out of nowhere that were so big. I feel like if maybe they would have even just announced them a little bit ago, or mainly again if they would have just, I guess, kind of done it sooner, that could have been kind of nice. I feel like overall they do just take a little bit too long, and the other things that I just barely mentioned. Now, something else about balancing that I guess isn't 100% related to that is the actual changes themselves. I don't feel like Blizzard really does this in the perfect way. That's what I'm going to say. Essentially what they do is that they either barely buff or nerf characters, or they almost completely overhaul them, super buff or nerf them, and I don't know. I personally wish that they did kind of medium intervals. And especially if they had a schedule that buff or nerfed a lot more often, I feel like this would be definitely possible. For example, let's say again with Doomfist, because, you know, he's an easy example. Let's say he comes out and he wasn't that great. They waited a month, so quite a while, but not way too long, and then started to slowly buff him. Maybe make his hitbox slightly bigger on his rocket punch or something. Maybe slightly reduce his cooldowns, make so that his ultimate charges a little bit faster. Just small buffs, one at a time, and until essentially he just gets into a position where he's doing decently enough. They don't have so many characters in this game like League of Legends, where, you know, one character is always going to be better than everyone else, because, you know, they're so similar. This game, none of the characters are really all that similar, so I feel like it should be possible to keep most of them pretty viable as long as you're doing consistent changes, but they seem to, again, like waiting a little bit. I'm guessing that maybe they do this because it can create excitement. You know, people have to wait a long time to see these buffs and nerfs coming out, but I feel like it just creates so many other problems that it's not really quite worth that. One of the problems, I guess I should mention right here, is the metas. The metas in this game last a long time, and the same characters are just as good for, it seems like, a little bit too long. I think dive meta is a pretty good example. They just took a long time nerfing that down. Another good example of this, well, they didn't even really nerf it, they just buffed Mercy, didn't they? But another good example is tank meta. That just took forever, and personally, I'm okay with having a meta be good for 1 or 2 months. That's fine, but when your meta lasts 3 or 4 or 5 months, that's just not very fun to play in, having to play the same people against the same characters with the same good strategies. I'd personally like something just a little bit different than that, and I feel like a lot of people would as well. So again, maybe changing up the schedule could help right there. Now, one of the final things that I want to talk about that also really frustrates me, and I feel like a lot of other players, is the fact that A, they sludgehammer a lot of the best characters, and B, they kind of ignore a lot of the worst characters. Now, of course, I think it does make sense to nerf the top characters. Of course, they're the best. They're kind of just oppressing every other character. I think Mercy's a really good example. She was so good and competitive that she had like a 16% play rate with a 52% win rate. It was just domination, honestly. And if you didn't have her below Diamond, you were essentially kind of screwed. But they just kind of bonked her on the head one day. And I feel like that's kind of a problem because it just puts them in a bad position. It just makes it that a lot of people suddenly have their character being way worse, to a point where a lot of them are angry how bad their character is. While if instead of doing huge smashes to the head on the top characters, they did small taps on the shoulder, you know, they made them a little bit worse. Maybe reduce the amount of people she can res as one thing, and then if she's still too strong, maybe make so that she doesn't have self-healing when flying. If she's still too strong, maybe make so that she only gets one res. Anything like that. Just move it piece by piece by piece very consistently so people can slowly start to feel like the character is getting nerfed, but it's not too bad. They can still be used to that, and they can still play their character, and they won't really be way too angry. But the way that they're doing it right now is, bang, this character's not that great anymore. And that just really hurts a lot of players. It makes a lot of players not want to play their character. While even if, you know, they got the same nerfs in the end, like let's say you put on 4 nerfs on Mercy immediately compared to 4 nerfs on Mercy over 3 months, the 3 months way, or even just like a entire month way of just consistent different nerfs would feel a lot better, I think, for many people. And I kind of wish they would do that. And the other thing I wanted to mention before I kind of get done with this is the fact that oftentimes it seems like Blizzard team just kind of ignores the worst characters. They of course do oftentimes buff up the middle tier characters and then nerf the very top characters, so they kind of switch up. But a lot of the worst characters in the game don't really get buffed at all, and I think it's because they're kind of afraid that those characters will either be overpowered or underpowered like all the time, so they just kind of leave them underpowered. The characters that haven't been doing great for a while, Doomfist, Sombra, some other people out here, let me think of it, Hanzo, and even Anna for a while. A lot of these characters, they just seem to want to leave there until the meta shifts by itself and hope that they maybe do a little bit better. We haven't seen just about any buffs to these characters for a long time, and I know it is debatable. Maybe these characters are good in the right hands. That's always true. But I feel like they should be trying to buff the game to buff characters to at least a point where the average player can do at least half okay with that character. Maybe that's just me though. But that's something that I guess as well can piss off a lot of people, because you kind of don't want to main a bottom tier character, because you know that for the next 6 months at least, they're pretty much going to stay a bottom tier character. So why would I play them? They're just not going to be very good no matter how much work I put into them. While in some other games, you know, a lot of times the bottom tier characters are buffed up a little bit, and even if they don't become top tier, at least they're still a little bit more playable. and I'd like to see maybe a bit of that as well. But anyways, that is just my own opinions about this topic. I'm sorry if you didn't want me to talk about this, but this is something that I feel like is very important, and I feel like it could be fixed, mainly just with a timetable, or just by being more open to the community, by telling us more. I feel like just the way that they're so secretive with a lot of these, and the sledgehammer approach, and just all the different mistakes that I've mentioned, I feel like do kind of hurt. And I guess one final thing I want to say is, I hope that they use the PTR more. I really hope that in this next year they'll use it at all the way that it was kind of announced to be, where they start putting on small changes every few weeks, like every other week, that, you know, people test out. If it's too good, they get rid of it, or if it's too bad, they buff it up a little bit. I wish they do that instead of just making the PTR this literally just useless thing that only gives you the characters early, the new characters early, gives you the changes early, or helps you find bugs. That's something that I really hope they fix. I don't know why they do that. Anyways, as always, guys, though, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Sorry this was a bit of a rant, but I hope that it was a constructive rant that could help them eventually get a little bit better. If you have your own opinions, or if you've been frustrated in the past by some of these balance changes, please leave that down in the comment section down below. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see me talk about more stuff in the future, or that notification button. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.